ran away, leaving you inside. As Michael opens the door to ask for help, he sees what he thinks are his apprentices, but are actually skeletons asking if the smith master is done smelting. In his panic, he sees another being who calls him a fool and tells him he doesn't deserve to see that place yet. He used a hammer and chisel. He had no idea how to deal with the monsters. When the monster attacked Jawan, he fought back. The monster screamed and spat out blood, but it didn't seem to care. He seemed to like it. With so much going on, in the end, Michael was shocked and scared. So he broke the horn, and they talked about what had happened with the owner of the smithy in the past. Jawan then touched the horn with his hand. The surface moved as if it were reacting to his touch. In the next moment, Michael saw something unbelievable. The particles that Jawan's finger had touched were dug up, as if something had eaten them. Jawan shook his head. Michael looked closer. This reminded him of when he learned smithy as a child and his master told him that he wouldn't go beyond human limits. Anyway, in the end, he asked you what he needed to do to fight against the world. Jawan tells Michael to look carefully and not rely on the system, but to use his own eyes instead. That's when Michael sees it. As Jawan ran toward the spirit beast, he knew that the real world shouldn't exist. This made Michael want to pick up the chisel again with everything he had. He goes back to making the horn. Later that day, they were finally able to finish making the scabbard for the spirit sword. Jawan decides to call the newly awakened spirit Sword Lone Wolf, and they write it on the scabbard. So they said goodbye, and Michael asked Jawan what he thought Michael looked like. Jawan said Michael looked like a person, but in reality, everyone in Chaos looked like skeletons. As he goes around town, Mino follows him back, so he asks her what's up with her. So she tells him that she plans to kill him and that she would have a good life if she took all of the spirit stones that Jawan has. She also gives him a bag of clothes as a way of saying she's sorry. Then she asks him what he's going to do next. Jawan already knows how to meet the mayor, so he plans to meet him to ask about Illusion 3 and how to get to the Abyss. He adds that he's not coming back after saying that. After all, he's just a human, which makes her angry, and she asks, who does he think he is to say such a thing? Even though the people of the Chaos aren't as brave as Jawan, it hurts her. She says that they are still people, even though the truth doesn't change no matter how many times they are saved. Because of what the question shows him about that world, people would sell their souls to make their numbers go up in a world where numbers and data are the most important things. Mino breaks through the wall by asking Jawan if she looks like a human or not, as she says goodbye and tells her they won't see each other again. Her look changes, and she starts to look like a person again. People of Chaos are said to be dead souls who went to Chaos after dying in the tower. Jawan, however, is not like that. He causes chaos by going beyond what humans can do. He broke through the tower ceiling and climbed up into Chaos, returning to the bar. As she opens the door, Mino wonders how things could have turned out that way. The bar is in ruins, and a group of people from the Forbidden Heaven clan are waiting for her inside, holding Claire as a hostage. Janya, an older person, is in charge. He asks how Mino can come back alone, and she pulls out her dagger and tells him that he's not as smart as he seems, asking if he's ever seen a witch keep her promise and saying that someone won't be coming. She attacks them by saying that the person will only cause chaos, and Janya says that the witch has gone crazy. He sends out his shadows to fight her, but she easily beats them all with one hit. She stabbed Janya with her dagger, and he grabbed his sword to defend himself. His sword hit her, hurting her, and he also held Claire hostage while they fought. At the last try, she makes her ultimate attack by sending out 8 daggers at once. Janya easily destroys all of them, shows how cute her moves are. He then said that if she fell and lost consciousness, he would do it himself. She can only remember Jawan, and now she wants to go back in time to follow him. She thinks that Janya is going to hit her with his sword if things keep going this way. Janya was able to defend himself with his sword against a sudden attack from the sky. Jawan comes and stands next to Mino as she asks why he was there instead of destroying the world. He says that the clothes she gave him don't fit, so he gives them back. Janya realizes that Jawan took the spirit stone as his men are laughing with the fox, and Jawan saved them some trouble by looking for him. Jawan asks Janya if they are the guys who are with Mare and tells them to get Mino to come there. Janya thinks that Jawan might be crazy, but Mino tells him that Janya is a 4th stage adapter. Now they start swarming, and together they attack Janya instead. It makes him think that he just needs to cut off whoever is in his way. So Mino grabs him as she screams that Claire is a human. This shocked Jawan for a moment while he was looking at their true essence. Claire screams at him to start attacking, and Jiahuan stabs the roof, causing a pillar of light to shoot up into the sky and destroy the barrier they had put up. He then tells the gardener Gorgon at that very moment. Carlton and his men walk up to Jiahuan, greet him, and ask, "What the hell is going on?" Jiahuan wants to show that he came at the right time because he says Janya is breaking the law. He also says that they plan to use the bar as a base to try to destroy the world by plotting with the Minot, even though Jiahuan wants to end chaos. Carlton uses his authority and silver restraints to save the day in an instant. Carlton also calls on and uses his authority to catch the bad guy. He even says that any more fighting is pointless, but Jiahuan won't give up. He rushed forward and hit Carlton with his sword, which they call Ash. The sound wave went all the way around the bar, but Jiahuan's sword broke when it hit the axe of light, so he jumped up and tried again to hit Carlton. In the end, Carlton uses the chain of light again, and this time he easily knocks Jiahuan out with the accent on Janya's neck as he surrendered. Janya also says that he heard that Carlton is as naive as he is righteous because Jiahuan threw a poison gas bomb in the bar as soon as they made it outside. He says that he didn't think he would use the Black Cloud yet with his men in tow. They tried to run away, but then an elder of the clan called Seal rang and asked if the Witch of the Massacre was so strong that Janya had to use the Black Cloud. That's when Janya tells them that the silver restraint has been used. At the same time, Jiahuan, Minho, and Carlton are inside. A moment later, Seal Rang sees Jiahuan drag Minho out of the bar. He asks about Jiahuan and takes a slight stab at the three of them. Janya tells him that he is also interested in Jiahuan. The fact that Jiahuan is fine after being hit by with that thought, he stabs his scabbard into the ground and uses its skill to call forth the spirit of garlic. The spirit then dashes towards them, and in an instant it kills the two Minho from the Forbidden Heaven clan, leaving only the two high members of it. He then runs away, leaving Jiahuan to deal with Jiahuan and Janya, the two members he cares about, and thinking that's how it's going to end. At that point, Janya was going to die no matter what, so he ate a spirit stone. His soul corruption quickly spread through his body, slowly turning him into a huge monster that towered over the houses around him. People call it the Dead, because when it attacks people, it stabs them with its claw and takes their life force into its mind. Janya sees the truth about the world he thought he knew, which is full of chaos. He talks about what good dignity would look like in a world like that, and his fear of dying goes away. When he turns around to say how sneaky Jiahuan is, he feels the presence of demons. This surprises him and makes him wonder how a human can live in that world. While Jiahuan is wandering around asking himself how he can't figure Jiahuan out, well, it really doesn't matter to him. With one step, he jumps toward the dead, and with a small stab, he cuts off the monster's head. This is very disappointing for Jiahuan because he needs someone from the bar who knows where the Minho is. He then returns to Minho. Soon after, they were able to get Minho and Carlton out of the dangerous Black Cloud. But even though Carlton seems fine, the corruption is spreading quickly through Minho. Carlton tells his men to warn the inner fortress, while Minho asks Jiahuan to kill her while she is still saying that God knows she is a human because he can't use comprehend on her. He also wonders why the question would waver when he used it on her and why the dead would collapse. But where he's going, there's no need for emotions. He decides to kill her, but Claire stops him, telling Jiahuan that it might not be too late yet and begging him to wait a little longer. Later that day, a camp is set up to stop the soul corruption from spreading to Minho and Carlton. The small bodies that have been found in the fortress have put the town on high alert. As the alert told them to leave immediately, people were all over, asking what had happened. A man with blonde hair tries to ask a guard where they should evacuate, but it turns out that the guard has already turned into a dead person. The dead immediately kill the man with their tentacles, while another small dead moves closer to the people to eat their life force. From the roofs of the houses, you can see a group of people running and jumping behind the small bodies that appear in an instant. They slash the dead, saving the people from being eaten by them. A high-level adapter also appears to protect the people. In the meantime, Jiahuan is waiting for Minho to get help, even though he thinks that the world called Chaos is the graveyard of the people who died on the tower and is just waiting for its turn to feed the three of them, including Minho. Claire tells him that she knows people very well. She also knows that no one in Chaos has the courage to go against the world and find a better definition. She also says that she is sure Jiahuan is dangerous, although Minho hopes that Jiahuan won't leave that place. Claire wants Jiahuan to leave because when people look at him, they see hope. And if he's there, people will feel even worse. Mino says Jawan shouldn't give up on that world because she hopes he won't. Exactly now, Jawan tells the guards to bring all the medicine to stabilize Carlton, whose condition is getting worse. Mino and Carlton are running out of time. In the end, they use the horn of the horn beast to make a powder and give it to Carlton to drink. Even though it can't clean up the soul corruption, they still hope it will at least slow it down. Jawan comes to James and asks if there is no one who can bring Carlton back from the dead. Even though Jahir looks calm, he's freaking out inside because Jawan is stopping his sword with just his hand. Then he pulls out Granarch's horn and, using his bare hand again, crushes it into powder and makes them both drink it. It turns out that Jawan is very attached to his gate manager, who is glad that the number on the measuring device has stopped changing. Mino, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. Their identification isn't stopping, but it's moving along quickly because Manoa's gotten worse. Her only act of corruption has gone over 95, and they couldn't stop the situation from getting worse. Jahir tries to get closer, and he wants to kill Mino right away. Claire mentions that Old, who could do a dead slash, which Jawan notices. Jawan is told that dead slash only cuts away the corruption while the squad takes her away. Now Jahir says that he won't give up on that, and he asks Jawan to step aside. So he takes his sword and plans to kill Mino himself because she asked him to kill her earlier. From the back, Claire is yelling at Jawan to stop, but he doesn't listen to her. Instead, he asks Mino a question, which causes streaks of light to appear on her chest and sends Jawan into another world, where he wonders what happened. Inside the space, he sees an old man who is saddened by the way Mino is. As he turned around, he was surprised to see anyone asking who he was to get into his world. The old man Jiuhuanwan tried to use his question on him, but it didn't work. In the end, he thinks that the old man is the cause of Mino's soul corruption and rushes toward him. The old man seems to think the same thing. The old man is able to stop the slight stab, and Jawan is able to stop the old man's slash. A moment later, the image breaks apart, and both Jawan and the old man come out into the real world. Jahir asks the old man what he was doing there, while now that it is clear that he is Chung Hale, the divine doctor of despair. Jahir asks again, why is Chung Hale there instead of helping the fortress master? He says a beautiful woman is about to die, and who cares if he is with the fortress, master or not? Chung Hale is mad at Jawan. Because of him, the dead slash that he used to heal the corruption didn't work, and the dead slash can only be used with a tri-horn or higher sword. When he finds out that Jawan has a scabbard made of the Garnak's horn, he swarms around him and asks to borrow it so he can do the dead slash. Chung Hale is surprised that Jawan is willing to give the sword to someone he just met, so he thinks that Jawan is sure of himself and his skills. But that doesn't matter right now because he's going back into his world and is excited to see what the sword can do. In that instant, Jawan is also in the world that the old man is drawing, and he is wondering if that is a trick or if it is probably something similar to what Jawan does. Chung Hale runs forward while everyone else realizes that this is the way the old man sees the world. After all that tension, the old man trips and blames the stupid fortress master for his low spirit power. Now the world he draws is falling apart, and Mino's picture is fading. So he apologizes, and God picks up his sword to try to do the technique. The old man is angry when he thinks about how careless Jawan is, and remembers how Claire said the same thing. So Jawan tells them to shut up as the world that the old man's drew becomes demons, and he says that it was the first time he used his sword to save someone else's life, which surprised the old man. Jawan then starts drawing Mino, whom he knew to be a very playful and stubborn person. Even though she is an assassin who doesn't betray others, she has a weak heart. Something seems to be missing. Lastly, someone who trusts others as the world disappears. Mino thanks him for remembering all the good things about her as she smiles brightly at the person she loves and hates. Jahir, who can't see the world they draw, notices that the identification is stopping, leaving him speechless. The old man praises Jawan and says that Jawan seems less narrow-minded now. He calls the technique Jawan uses dead staff, and even though he doesn't want to admit it, he tells Chung Hale that Jawan is able to use the technique to cut away the soul corruption, so no one in chaos can learn it. He thinks that Jawan is an awakened being who is more like the divine doctor. Then it's explained that awakened beings are different from the norm and don't follow the rules of the system. There are a very small number of humans who somehow get very strong after refusing to adapt to the system. These are the people who have the power to completely destroy the powers that belong to chaos. Even in the whole almighty land, only a small number of awakened people are known. That's when Jahir gets excited about the idea that someone might be able to use a technique to cut away the corruption and save the fortress master. At the same time, another group from the fortress comes in and says that he has permission from the inner fortress to tell people to move out of the way. He was the Dark Shadow Squad captain, a Stage 5 adapter. The Dark Shadow Squad captain pays respects to the emissary of the Emerald Bug, Jia Huan, and asks him to follow the captain into the inner fortress. A few minutes later, they arrive at the fortress and finally meet with Shiver, who is in charge of the inside of the Gorgon fortress. Joanne then tells the Shadow Squad captain that he is not the emissary of the Emerald Bug, which surprises them. That makes the others angry, but Shiver tells them to calm down and asks Zhou to explain in detail what happened after he entered Chaos. In short, Du Zhao says that he got involved in something by accident and ended up in Chaos. Then, by chance, he got the Spirit Stone from the Emerald Bug clan and entered Gorgon's fortress. After that, he got involved in the incident again, and by chance met the Divine Physician. He was able to learn the Divine Physician's dead slash, even though he had only seen it once. Chung Heel asks Shiver if he believes that story, but Shiver says that he was crazy to begin with. So Shiver adds that if you want to win someone's trust, you have to. He must first believe in that person. He then asks again, what is the body that everyone is living in right now? This surprises Zhao, who is thinking that he didn't go into the tower and came out of it by destroying it, which is why he is in soul form. It's likely that the illusion tree thought he was dead and sent him to Chaos, since his body is probably still on Earth. So he asks Shiver how he knows Jaeon is not dead. Shiver tells him that no one in Chaos would describe their own death the way Jaeon did, the way Jaeon did. And he asks Jaeon if he doesn't want to say who he is, because someone is threatening him. But Jaeon says that isn't the case. In the end, Shiver apologizes to Jaeon and tells him that he has been watching him for the past 4 days through his subordinates, which Jaeon already knew Shiver expected. He then pulls out a window with information about Jaeon. Shiver says that Jaeon is much stronger than the fortress thought, so it was hard for them to keep an eye on him. However, they did learn something from it. Jaeon's danger level is S. His power level is unknown, and he caused around 380 million horns worth of damage. When Shiver asks Jaeon if he knows what other people call someone like him, Jahir agrees and says he doesn't know if Jaeon is a hero or a villain. Shiver then says that Jaeon might be a hero to some and a crazy person to others. People call him different names, but to Shiver, people like Jaeon are called protagonists. The ads say that protagonists like Jaeon are famous, but Jaeon is not famous in any way. That means that Jaeon's information has been kept secret by someone, and it looks like power is against Jaeon. If they were the people behind him, he wouldn't have had any trouble with the identification papers. He tells Jaeon that he is the main character and that he is being chased by a big power that just so happened to escape into Chaos. Does Jaeon even think for a second that this power is after him? Even though he's not sure, he thinks it would be the monarch of pitch darkness. So he went away wondering how strong those monarchs really are. Then he asks Shiver if the master of the Gorgon fortress is strong enough to fight against the 12 monarchs of the Almighty Land. Shiver feels relieved, because if one of the 12 monarchs is the one chasing after the other, they wouldn't be able to mess with what's going on in Chaos. So he asks him what he wants in return. The child tells him that Zhou only needs to do one favor for them to save the fortress master. 2 hours later in the castle's dungeon. Hours later, in the castle's dungeon, Zhou asked where the training room was. Then it's revealed that the Northern Inspection Gate Captain and Mino are recovering in the treatment center. The person who leads them is confused about why they want to go to the training ground instead of the VIP room. Chung Hale explains that they need to know which is stronger, Jaeon's dead trusts or the divine physicians that slash. Chung Hale then asks Du Zhaowan if he also cleared the Tower of Masters, and it turns out that he did after a few seconds from below the ground. Chung Hale asks Zhaowan want to fight again, but the training ground is already a mess, and Zhaowan says the match has already been decided. But the old man says he hasn't used his most powerful move yet, because he's afraid Zhaowan will die if he does. When the old man asks how old Zhaowan is, he is told that he is about 60 years old. This makes Chung Hale scream again that he's already 1,000 years old. He says that 60 years of frosting could never beat 1,000 years of slashing. Well, Zhaowan makes fun of him, so he says that from his point of view. It looks like the old man has only been doing it for 10 years. This makes the old man angry, so he jumps out of his hole to see if Jaewan can still say that after getting hit by him with his slashing technique. He then did his strongest attack on Jawan, releasing a tiger-like spirit from his blade, and Jawan struck back, taking all of the old man's attacks. He gets pushed back, and the old man says that Jawan isn't so bad for it. But with that much power, the Gorgon's fortress will be completely destroyed. In the end, the old man gave up and called Jawan his punk. Elsewhere, in the 5th region of the Almighty Land, the region of Strong Steel, a spy tells the monarch that the current monarch of Pitch Darkness is trying to contact Chaos. He also says that all the monarchs of the Almighty Land have signed a secret treaty to stay out of Chaos's business. The spy is afraid to face the monarch because he doesn't know what to say. He can only ask the monarch to watch the video he plays. It's a Javan's video that's been going around that shows him clearing the 99th floor. People call him a product, and it's said that he has a deal with the 9th Regent's monarch of Pitch Darkness. When he or she asks the man where the product is, the man says that Jawan broke through the ceiling of the tower when he refused to clear the tutorial and ran away into Chaos. The man also says that Jawan killed the cultivator on the 100th floor and that the monarch of Pitch Darkness has been involved with matters of chaos for a long time. There are 10 clans in Chaos. Some of them have been in touch with the monarch all the time. He was left wondering what the monarch of Pitch Darkness was up to, so he decided to send 10 elite warriors of the Gold 1 grades and High Awaken High Ion. It turns out that he knows Chung Hale because he was also worried about how Chung Hale was doing. While at the Gorgon Fortress, Chung Hale screams at Jawan, begging him to stop as he grabs the spirit sword. Jawan says that he heard the old man and tells Chung Hale to get down, already leaving him on the ground. He asks what kind of idiot would be able to do such a technique after only 40 years. Jawan says that he has done about 1 billion thrusts, and he also says that he is doing thrusts with more than just his sword. This surprises the old man, who can feel the sharp and strange energy coming from Jawan. Even though it wasn't pressure, it's a push that leads to chaos and horrifying hostility. Now he knows that a 60-year-old kid does what he thinks a 60-year-old kid does. And he has become the thrust and is moving toward the world every second, even at this very moment. Jawan then told them about a deal they made before the duel. It said that the loser had to grant the winner a wish. So they went for a walk outside the fortress where he explained things one by one. He told them about the towers, like the Tower of Nightmare, which were made by mayors and had ranks from F to S. But there were some mayors who didn't care about things like ranks. A master is an artist who made S-rank towers as an apprentice and quickly rose to the top of their field. However, not every tower that a master makes is a tower of a master. Some of them, there are towers that were built without the intention of being used for cultivation. Only unique towers are called Towers of Master, and among those who cleared the Tower of Master, Awakened would sometimes appear. The old man also says that he came out of the 4th tower of the Master Melville, which was known as the Moby Dick in the world. Every minute, a white whale would appear on the 1st floor of the tower and attack humans. Now, it wasn't hard for Chung Hale to do, but back then, the tower was like a disaster to him. Many of the martial arts masters of Miram died, so for him to clear that tower was almost a miracle. The old man notices that Jawan also looks like he came from a tower of masters, so he asks him which one it is. Jawan tells him that the tower was made by Mullock, which confuses the old man because he thinks that no Awakened could clear marks on the tower. Jawan then asks the old man if he knows Mullock, and the old man says that he does. It turns out that Chung Hale has traveled with Millwork, and Chung Hale tells him to walk outside because the story is long. Then they go to a street stall full of people eating, drinking, and doing other things. They also meet with Claire, which can be seen as a little bump with Jawan. Jawan show the other side of chaos. The people who die in either the tower or the war on the Almighty Land. These people quit their jobs to enjoy their lives again after the horrors of war and fighting for their lives. But people started to want the opposite in this paradise. They miss real life with death, so they started acting like they were living a real life. Even though they don't feel hungry, they eat as if they will die if they don't, and if they drink water, they act drunk. But one day, drunks who started to try new things led to the formation of an expedition that dreams of the impossible and brings people together to rediscover real life. That's the search through the abyss for the fruit of resurrection. They are fruits that hang from the branches of the illusion tree at the end of the abyss. This fruit can bring the dead back to life, and it is the only way that the dead of chaos can come back to life. Chung Hale said that the Abyss Expedition is a group of people working together to find that fruit. At that time, Chung Hale had already woken up, and he was old enough to be fearless and tough. The captain is also on the expedition, and Chung Hale talks about how special it is that Monarch is going back to the abyss. Mark says that he can't believe that Chung Hale was able to get an incomplete awakening without giving up his emotions. Chung Hale gets mad at him, throws his sword at Moloch, and asks, why is a Mino going to the abyss? It turns out that Moloch is a Mino who regrets building towers. Moloch tells Chung Hale that it's fine if he doesn't believe what he says. He said that the reason he went to the illusion tree and is going to the abyss is because of that tower, the one that stops all cultivation. This is why he decided to join the expedition. In the end, Chung Hale also joins the expedition. He makes it to the illusion tree and sees that the fruits are starting to fall from the branches. Because of this, each member of the expedition could take a lot of fruit back to Chaos with them. Unfortunately, when the expedition was heading back to Chaos, the monarchs and patriarchs of the Almighty Land were waiting at the entrance. Chung Hale said that even though they didn't have the courage to go back into the abyss, the 4 fortress masters and 10 faction leaders who were on the expedition at the time were no match for those scum. They were in a totally different league, so they were very different in terms of power. This is how the people of Chaos lost their fruit. And every time they die, those jerks still eat the fruits they stole to get back to life. This has been going on for 900 years. It's as if they had another place built for them called the Resurrection Palace, where the monarchs and the 5 great families would take turns coming back to life after they died. It was already decided who would live, so Jawan now knows why the people are all so lazy. They knew that they would never be able to get the real life they wanted by eating the fruit, and the expedition's captain, Moloch, is never seen again after the trip. Before he disappeared, he seemed to have said something that nobody knows. The captain of the execution squad, Jahir, comes running in and says that they're in big trouble. He also says that a debt appeared in the fortress that is 10 times bigger than what Jawan has. Jahir and Jawan run toward the fortress. Jawan even notices the energy coming from the fortress and assumes that the fortress master is indeed in a very bad state of soul corruption. The spiritual pressure is 10 times stronger than what he felt from Jawan deep inside the inner fortress, or more accurately, under the fortress. When Shiverton asks for money, Jawan remembers what happened. Instead, he only asked for one favor, which was to save the fortress master. Jawan then asked if the fortress master was going through datification, since that would explain why the fortress master suddenly went crazy tonight. He also says that it only happens once a week on average, but for some reason it is happening today. He tells that the fortress master is a good person. In addition, he is a living legend because he was one of the few people who went on the Abyss expedition with the divine physician. When they both landed with the old man in tow, they were greeted as heroes. Suddenly, there is a tremor inside the fortress, and the dead aura is coming out stronger and stronger from deep below the fortress. The captains of the Disruption Tower and the Despair Tower also appear. One is short and uses a hammer as his main weapon, and the other is kind of tall and uses a spear. They agreed to help the new people living in the chaos, but when Jahir asked them to step aside, they refused, saying that would be a problem and that they had orders to go against heaven's wishes, while they were a symbol saying that the only heaven they have is the forbidden heaven. They run fast and jump on top of Jahir and Jawan in an instant. As they stomp on the ground, Jahir moves Jawan out of the way so that he doesn't get hurt. At this point, Jahir is able to stand up to the 2 captains who attack him, which makes him think because he didn't think the Forbidden Heaven clan would have people in the fortress. He says that the captain of the outer fortress didn't take him seriously enough, and that they shouldn't think they are still the same as they were before. He tells them to go home, and if they do, he says that the fortress master will forgive them. The Despair captain asks him who the fortress master is, and if Jahir talks about the thing that's bound underground. The fortress master can't even control his own power, and he can't tell the difference between good and evil. The Despair captain says that isn't the heaven they served, and he asks the Demon Extermination Squad captain, Captain Jahir, if he's still serving the thing after seeing how it is now. Jahir says he is, but the Despair captain says that's why they can't talk, because the Disruption captain is about to hit his head with his hammer and blow a huge hole in the fortress ground as Jahir runs away. The duo says that if Jahir had been a little smarter, they wouldn't had to fight like that, though the 2 of them are just 4th stage adapter, and there's no way they could defeat a stage 5 adapter. Like Jahir, their growth is weird, as if they were to defecated, and Jahir shouts to Jawan, telling him to run away, but as he shouts, Chung Hale gets thrown into his face. Jawan throws the old man as he says that it's the revenge for pushing him earlier. The two captain asks whether Jawan's able to perform the dead slash, and they starts to talk to themselves. They mock Johan for having such a small size. Thinking that he is weak, and all but in an instant, Jawan appears behind the disruption captain. He doesn't even achieve his sword and goes for a punch. That single punch blows the hammer. Users away, slamming him into the wall. Notices that Jawan is quite strong. The despair captain starts. Using a defensive stance now, Jawan mocks them back, saying that they have too many openings for them to call that a defense. Few gives the despair captain a low blow, but he still stands up and goes for a counterattack, which Jawan avoids. The despair captain throws a fit. Is he attacking Jawan at that moment? Jawan also feels a stronger energy than them and tries to figure out what it is. The despair captain says that someone like Jawan won't be able to save the fortress master, let alone get to him there. He jumps up towards the captain of the despair tower, ready to beat the captains behind it. In the fortress's dungeon, the aura coming from the datification fortress master isn't stopping Shiver, and the other top officials of the fortress are watching nervously because they can't believe the dead slash has already been used after only one day. The fortress master has already gone completely crazy. Well, the divine doctor was there in the morning, and they already knew that the energy had calmed down. Shiver left wondering why the fortress master suddenly went crazy. If they had just one more month, they could have asked Jawan for help after a few trials. But for it to happen all of a sudden right after the dead slash is too odd. Shiver then thinks that there are people there who know who Jawan is. He knows for sure that there have been traitors among them. Shiver reminds himself that the fortress master wanted to check the outer tower to see who could control Soul's corruption, even though he wasn't from the Emerald Bug clan, before things got crazy. Shiver tries to convince him not to go alone and to send the captain instead, but the fortress master insists on going himself. The fortress master then brags that he is the only one who survived the battlefield and the expedition, even though he came back infected with the soul corruption and was immediately beyond help. For now, Shiver can only think that it was his hand that did it, but he doesn't have any proof. Then, as the corruption gets much worse, I tell the people around me to get rid of the fortress master. Shiver tries to stop them and tells them to wait for the divine position, but Mind says that the dead slash can't beat the corruption and offers to charge at the fortress master with them and do a dead seal. Shiver is still trying to stop them, but the Dark Squad captain comes in with the Spirit Stone. Shiver now knows that the captain of the Dark Squad, who used to be part of the Inner Administrator, is a traitor, and inside the box is the stone that Jawan gave me before. He tells me that the future of Gorgon depends on it and asks how a diver could hide the stone from himself. He asks Shiver again if he plans to let the fortress master grow to a huge size when the divine physician isn't there. What the Mayans say makes sense. But once the dead seal is done, there is no way to bring back the fortress master, even though there isn't an Emerald Bug clan nearby. Instead, he brings his men, who look shady and wrong, but who he says can do the technique. After they were done with the seal, the spirit of the fortress master would be kept in the Spirit Stone. Whoever has the Spirit Stone could become the next master of Gorgon. If the wrong person gets it, it could hurt them. As soon as the men touch the Spirit Stone, Shiver realizes that everything that has happened since the fortress master's soul became corrupted, and he went berserk was planned by the outer administrator, Hyman. So he yells at the guards to catch Hyman right away, but no one does what he says. Shiver falls to his knees, losing all of his strength. When he realizes that they are all in on it, he has nothing left to do. He apologizes to the fortress master, saying that they weren't able to protect Gorgon. He cries his eyes out as the men perform the dead seal on the locked-up research fortress master. Suddenly, the ceiling smashed open with a quiet thrust into the dungeon. No one seems to get hurt, but a few people come close to being crushed. People are left wondering what just happened. At that moment, Shiver sees a glimmer of hope as the Dark Squad captain and Hyman twitch their tongues. I thought it was bad luck that Pierre de One was there with his spirit sword, and Jahir looked fine after fighting the two captains. Nearly everyone there is a traitor, so they just stand there. Maihan asks Jawan who he is to come there in that way. Jahir tells the outer administrator to stop there as he throws the beaten-up captain in his face. Jahir says that the world already knows about his betrayals because they have all been told. The captain of the Disruption Tower tries to apologize, but Hyman blows him up anyway. This surprises Jahir because Hyman says that the other two captains decided to kill themselves after they were found out. He then asks Jahir how he can blame him for not being able to stop them, so Jahir tells the guards to catch the outer administrator. However, instead of doing what Jahir told them to do, the other captains instead raised their swords against him, apologized, and asked him to stay put until the fortress master's seal was finished. Demon Huangli, who has been quiet the whole time, should finally speak up. He says that Gorgon will protect Zhouwan if Zhao helps save the fortress master, adding that Shiver made the wrong promise to him because Gorgon can't protect him. Zhouwan offers to change the terms of the promise. He says that he will save the fortress master and kill all the traitors there in exchange. Zhouwan was once the old man, and he wants to set up the Abyss expedition again now. When Zhouwan demands that, he shocks all the high-ranking adapters around him and says what a bunch of nonsense that is. But now that he knows Zhouwan did it, he decides to go all out against you and tells his men to swarm. At that moment, Zhouwan tightens his grip on his sword and gets ready to welcome all the members of the Forbidden Heaven clan, including those who are already in the dungeon. That's when he trusts the members of the Forbidden Heaven clan one by one, like a sewing machine that never stops. Even the captain of the Dark Squad doesn't have enough power to fight against the forest, so he can only swear to himself. They keep coming at Zhouwan over and over again, and the number of Forbidden Hab clan members seems to go on forever. So when Zhouwan had enough, he signed up for their seer number and used normal thrust on the mom. This cut their numbers in half, and Du Zhouwan also pointed his normal thrust at Hyman, the first elder of the Forbidden Heaven clan. He tries to stop it for a moment, but then realizes that it's impossible. He avoids the attack's energy, which blows a huge hole in the dungeon. Jahir and Shiver are shocked when Hyman realizes that he would have died if he hadn't stopped blocking. People from the Forbidden Heaven clan are talking about whether to keep working on the seal or use the Black Cloud to kill everyone in Gorgon. Zhouwan hears them and calls out to Hyman, saying that he is the Gorgon Fortress Outer Admitted Strader and the first elder of the Forbidden Heaven clan. He doesn't know what they're trying to do or why they want to corrupt souls. But the administrator knows that, and Zhouwan likes people like them. He can destroy that world and still feel at ease. Du Zhouwan starts to gather his energy and focus it on his sword. Hyman sees this and tells everyone under his command to do whatever they need to do to stop Zhouwan. People start running, and as Hyman runs as fast as he can away from Zhouwan, they try to hit Zhouwan as their only target. Zhouwan himself points his sword towards the sky. He smiles and feels relieved that he can destroy everything without worrying that innocent people will be hurt. He strikes it with a strong thrust, upwards, towering over the sky itself and decimating the members of the Forbidden Heaven clan who dared to stand in his way high above the sky. The energy from the thrust became a firework that spread across the fortress, leaving Hyman unable to do anything while Shiver and Jahir watched. The scattered energy falls down toward the people of the Forbidden Heaven clan, just like Zhouwan wanted to do in the first place. This reminds Shiver to ask the Fortress Master to explain that an overwhelming hope is one that doesn't give up no matter what. As Shiver can't believe it, he feels the overwhelming hope that the Fortress Master has talked about from day one. When the dust settled, Hyman's body split into two, and he started talking about what a horrible jerk Zhouwan is. But it is too late to help the Fortress Master, who is already too sick. But Zhouwan doesn't seem to care. He stabs the traitor in the face and kills him to feed the illusion tree. Then Jahir comes running in, and Zhouwan says no matter how hard you try, the old man won't wake up without giving it much thought. Zhouwan grabs the old man and slams him hard into the wall, which surprises the extra motion captain. However, as the divine physician wakes up, the Fortress Master's soul corruption goes past the point of no return and reaches 99.9. The Fortress Master's spirit power finally breaks, and his identification begins. Red lights go off all over the Gorgon to warn everyone that a huge spirit is about to go through identification. In the end, it can't be done because the system says there will be a huge debt. Gorgon's automatic warning system has been set off, and people are running away from the fortress from far away. Jaewon can only wonder what happened in the castle because the aura of the dead is coming out so strongly. While this is going on, Chung Hale is getting ready to ask God to help him clear the path because his thrust is too sharp to save anyone. In that case, the divine physician pulls out his sword to perform the dead slash. The old man swings his sword, pulling the memories of the Fortress Master to engrave memorable memories into the dead as he tells anyone who will listen that this is what the dead slash is about. He also says that if they are full of memories, they can at least avoid the worst, but that a sound can be heard and the world that the old man drew will change. There he sees a red aura-emitting being that seems hostile to the old man and has its own world. As soon as the old man realizes that the thing in front of him is not the fortress master, his world starts to fall apart. He tells you that he can tell something is very wrong and that the thing in front of him is not the fortress master, but something completely different. Then the body of the fortress master starts breaking the chain that is holding him. With his deep crimson eyes, the thing that is supposed to be the fortress master Chung Heal shivers and sweats as the master's body quickly wakes up into a completely different being. Zhonwan knows that it is something stronger than anything he faced in chaos. Once he goes down into the ground, it sends shocks to Zhonwan and Chung Heal. He says how surprising it is and how he never thought he would be able to go down into the world with the master's body. In the end, the unbeatable Gorgon's fortress master died when he saw the familiar face of Chung Heal. The thing spoke to him and told him that the place where he found the fruit 900 years ago is still in chaos because Chung Heal wasn't fully awakened. Now, the old man was scared to look when he realized that whatever was in the master's body was the master of the dead palace, which was in the middle of chaos and the only one who could open the door to the abyss. The Soul King Catastrophe had asked him a question, but all he could see was deep darkness, and that the person in front of him wasn't human. It was neither living nor dead, and it didn't look like an object either. Zhu Zhuan can only wonder what the thing in front of him is. With a flick of his finger, he uses his magic to hit the two people who are trying to save the fortress master. He destroyed the old man's world and called his own world, ending disaster. He then looked at Zhaowan and said, "What an interesting human Zhaowan is, because he still has a heart even though he's fully awakened." Zhaowan wasn't even bothered by the fact that Chung Heal lost all of his power on his leg. The Soul King's authority is dead, and it's only a clone of him. Still, his power is so great in front of the old man that Zhaowan suddenly tells Chung Heal that he has failed and is thinking about killing that thing. Now, Catastrophe smiles and asks Zhaowan if he really just said that he would kill the only king of the abyss. He twists his neck to show how interesting the human in front of him is, even though Chung Heal thinks that everyone must be joking when they say that not even Mullet could stop the Soul King. That power is still overwhelming, even if the Soul King is a clone. God tells the old man not to be afraid because he says he can beat the Soul King. Chung Heal is impressed by how calm Zhaowan is in the face of an impossible situation. He laughs hysterically when Zhaowan tells him when to give it his best shot, just as the king pulls his sword out of his mouth. He takes out his pitch-black broadsword and tells Zhaowan that he is a stupid awaken with a human heart. It is the Void Sword, a terrifying weapon that killed half of the expedition squad in an instant. Chung Heal is shocked to see the sword again because he can't believe it. The Catastrophe runs straight at Zhaowan, but he manages to avoid it. While Chung Heal was surprised by the gust of wind, the king said that he had seen eyes like Zhaowan's that said Zhaowan wanted to go into the abyss, which surprised the old man. He has no idea what went on in the fortress, even though he knows nothing about the kid in front of him. Chung Heal knew that the kid in front of him was strange, but he didn't expect Zhaowan to want to go to the abyss. The king shouted and seemed really excited, saying, "It's amazing that there are Huang who still want to reach the end of this world, but it's not enough that Zhaowan isn't even close to that mare. He knows his mark and the king's movements became faster, Zhaowan. Now it's over. Don't forget to like the story and click the bell for more.